All right. So Jeff, take us back before real estate, man. What were you doing? And how did you get into this business?
Yeah. So, I went to school. My master's degree is in computer science and technology. But through the years, I never, wanted to be tied into, working for a Fortune 500 company, or I've just always had that kind of entrepreneurial drive to me. And so I graduated college and just kind of was like, that I don't think this is what I want to do the rest of my life, is just work for a company. And so then I started looking for a realtor. I was going to start fixing and flipping homes, pretty much like everybody does, getting into this business or wanting to make money. And so I couldn't find a good realtor. And so I got my license, and I originally started out by fixing and flipping homes. And I did a couple, but then I'm born and raised in the area, and I found people that just wanted service and wanted good service and wanted somebody to help them buy homes and sell homes. And so for me, it was like, why not do that and have no overhead or no risk involved, but you can still make a commission. So at that point, I was just like, well, let me just do what I was trying to do anyways and just help serve the community. And so that's when I just decided to start doing it. And I was working a part-time job at the time. And then my business kept getting busier to the point where, and then I found a large company and kind of grew from there. And that's at that point, I was losing business on the weekends. So I dove into it full time in about 2011. And so from 2011 to 2013, I was closing about 85 homes by myself, as the photographer, as the transaction coordinator, as the processor, as pretty much everything. And that's when I just kind of woke up and something has to change here. It's just, I have no life, and I'm doing all the work and I'm doing everything, and you miss stuff. And so that's when I decided to form a team. And luckily for me, my wife ranked pretty well in terms of administrative work. So she was kind of my first hire. So it worked out pretty convenient from there. And then kind of from there, we just grew into what we are today.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So 80 to 85 homes.
Yeah.
By yourself.
With no help. Photography, listing manager, transaction coordinator, yes, director of operations, director of sales. I was basically every person in one, buyer's agent. And I had to get really efficient. So I think that's where I'm different, is efficient with efficiency. So I think our operations, we work on right now we're at about 85% listings with very limited staff. We don't have a ton of salespeople. I think we run with really good systems, operations, and efficiency. And so I had to get really efficient to be able to, and then I just hit a ceiling. I was like, I just can't get past this 80 something transactions a year. And that's when I had to form a team. My wife came on, we went to 120. We brought on a transaction coordinator. We went to 160. And then we just kept hitting these ceilings every year, where we just had to keep adding a few more pieces, but we did it pretty efficient. Sometimes that's not the greatest way of doing it, but that's kind of how we did it to stay profitable and just really, do the best we could do in terms of growth and production and profitability.
Well, I think that's phenomenal from the standpoint of when we think about, agents and them starting to need leverage, right? I think that, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, I would put that more in terms of like maybe 24 to 36 deals, 2 to 3 a month. And we start saying, okay, you're probably doing non-dollar producing activities at this point. And yet we have some of these outliers like you, Jeff, who are out there, and you're able to just like you're hitting a ceiling, but you're blowing the cap off. I mean, you don't meet many agents. I don't meet many agents that are able to handle 80 to 85 deals a year consistently without any of that other leverage. So like, yeah, you had to have even been very process driven then. What were some of those, if you can think back, because a lot of our agents, I think, are operating right now without leverage. If you can think back, like what were some of the very first processes that you put on paper to help you get to that level, 80 deals a year?
Yeah, so I guess I am a kind of a pretty slow learner too, right? It took me 3 years to figure out, well, at 30 transactions, I should have really been hiring leverage at that time and not waiting until 3 years later.
We all have our strengths.
Yeah. And so, and the average price point back then for me was 90,000, 100,000, then 110,000. So it was like working off of volume. It really was. So I just think intuitively that's what I do really well. And that's what I've learned where my strengths are, even to our team today, is just being super efficient, and back then I was using, pink papers and stuffing them in, Rolodexes and just being really efficient with my calls. It was a lot of time blocking, a lot of scheduling, right? Because then you're lead generating in the morning. So and it was, working from my home, and then I ended up going into the office, but it was just, being really efficient with my time, I would say, if anything, right? Time blocking everything. And so now everybody has access to my calendar, and if it's not on there, it just doesn't exist in my world. So even my personal life is like, my wife puts all of our stuff that I have to be at on our calendar. So it's just creating that efficiency built around your calendar, and then getting good systems, right? Like, just having a good CRM and loading that up and being organized with it and having good notes and good tasks, and just kind of everything's built around, your CRM, and just being efficient as you possibly can. But I would say more than anything, just time blocking, right? I'm not one to, what am I doing with this hour of the day? No, it's like, here's the schedule all the way from, I wake up to affirmations on my alarm clock. I eat a light breakfast of strawberries and bananas, have a cup of coffee, have a 30-minute workout in the morning. My daughter's off to school, and then I'm in the office by 8:00. And then still same routine. I'm at my computer. I still have people I'm following up with. I still have my tasks to do in the morning, and the team has all their tasks. So it's just built around a schedule to be the most efficient you can possibly be. I say would be the number one key.
You just mentioned a lot about routine and habits and really having that consistency throughout your day. And that obviously is what allowed for your efficiency and your effectiveness. I see some agents, and I talk to a lot of agents, that are really sort of every day looks totally different. Every day is whatever's coming at me is coming at me. So is it just a matter of discipline, Jeff, or how did you evolve in your ability to really be intentional about maximizing every minute and making sure that by the time you get to lunch every day, you had already had a phenomenal morning?
Yeah. And so I'm having a little trouble hearing you. It's a little low. But yeah, so for us, for me, it's being intentional about that morning, where every morning, and so I'm very introverted. So and this is what I try to preach to my team, like every one of my team members has a much better personality than I do. And I tell them, if I can get on the phone every day for 3 hours, every single morning, anybody can, because I personally hate talking on the phone, but knowing what you have to do to hit your goals. So for me, it's always been about, what do I have to do to hit the goals? And if it's built around a routine of making phone calls 3 hours a day, something that I just don't like to do, well, that's okay. I'm okay with that. That's just one of those parts of my jobs that I'm just not going to be thrilled about doing. But the big picture for me to hit my goals, for me to live that life that I want to live, it's going to be getting on the phone every single day for 3 hours. So it's just all built around my goals.
Yeah. So getting on the phone for 3 hours, is that still something that you like preach to your team? How's that work? Because right now, and I think this has always existed, call reluctancy is there. So how do you model, how do you model that for your team? And is it really 3 hours a day?
Yeah, so it's challenging, and I think with the way we're built, it's not necessarily that way, because we do have the luxury of having a really good inside sales team. So they're on the phone 8 hours a day. So it's really teaching them and getting them to build that habit for 8 hours a day. And so where they're doing that, then our sales team our outside sales agents are more the follow-up, right? Which I try and get them to block as much as they possibly can for the follow-up and continue following up with the current clients that they did meet with. But it's a challenge. I mean, you know, discuss it every sales meeting, how important the communication, the follow-up. But for us, it really starts with our key aspect is having the inside sales team to really be able to touch every lead, put the notes in, pass it off. And then there's an accountability between the inside sales and the outside sales agents to make sure they're doing their job, right? So if the inside sales agent does a pass off, they feel strongly this should lead to a closed deal. And so they're holding that next step, next level accountable to make sure they're doing their follow-up. So our agents aren't really doing lead generation. It's about 98% is generated from the team because we do a lot of marketing, a lot of farming, a lot of online presence. It's really an accountability between inside sales agent, that's their day all day long, sitting in front of their computer, dealing with every lead, passing it off as they feel it should be passed off, and to the agent they feel it should be passed off with. And then there's accountability there between the two to make sure that each one's following up until we convert that to a client or, you know, to a listing agreement, that sort of thing.
Very cool. So I want to go then from when it was you, your wife as your assistant or director of operations, transaction coordinator, to starting to build out the sales side a little bit. How did you dive right into the ISA model, or how did you get exposed to that? How did you know that was the direction that you wanted to go?
Well, just because as I moved up, you know, and started getting in rooms with people doing what I, you know, kind of the same level as I'm doing, you just start to hear kind of that buzzword. And when I sat down, I'm like, that's all I really was an inside sales agent. I was an ISA in the morning and then setting my own appointments to be a listing agent in the afternoon. And that's how I got really efficient early on too, was just concentrate. Like I got totally focused on listings, right? Because we can leverage a lot of listings. And so that was one thing I did, is just got really focused on, you know, being a listing agent. And so, you know, so I just had to develop that skill set and be an ISA in the morning and a listing agent in the afternoon and set my own appointments. And then, so it was easy. It was the roles were pretty defined. And then so as we grew, we actually didn't grow. We were probably, what really helped us is that support. Early on, I hired a buyer's agent because our team leader in the office told me how this agent would be great, and I have all this business, and it didn't work. It was just the dumbest thing I could have ever done, because I couldn't support it. I couldn't be their transaction coordinator. I could barely be my own transaction coordinator. So that didn't work. And then, so from that day on, I'm like, I'm going to build this the right way. And it was all through administrative staff. So we went, wife, TC, 2 virtual assistants, to help out. And then at that point, we were at about 220 deals. And then we brought on somebody to take over the buyers. And so that was our first, and it was only because I didn't want to deal with buyers, and we were getting buyer calls. It's like, I couldn't deal with all the buyers. And so at that point, it was like, they could have done 30 deals with their eyes closed at that point with how many leads we were getting with all the listings we had. So it was about, it was, and then we had a runner. So there was about 5 administrators before we really brought on a buyer's agent. And because I felt I could go on, with the right leverage, I could go on about 4 appointments a day and not have to give up listings. And so gave up the whole buy side at that point. But at that time we were doing 200 listings and 20 or 30 buyers, right? So because we can manage a lot more listings than buyers. And so at that point, then we just kind of sales and then admin. And as we kept growing, get the support for the sales. So right now we only have, I still go on the high-end listing appointments. And then we have 2 other listing agents that will take about 350 listings this year, sell 350 listings between 3 of us. And then we just have a lot of support on the back end because now our VA team's up to about 12. And then we have 2 inside sales agents. Now we have 3 just as of a few months ago, and they have 2 virtuals that help them on the back end. And then we have 4 buyers agents. So, but we still have so many buyer leads that we're still looking to hire. We're just looking to hire the right agents. So we would rather have maybe 6 to 10 really good agents than 30 that could possibly be a liability. So that's how we're constructed, just really efficient, small team with a lot of support.
Jeff, if I understand what you're saying, you mentioned that you had brought on a buyer's agent or another agent in the office maybe too soon, and how that didn't work out. And I hear more and more agents and small teams talking about bringing on agents. And the first question I ask them is, what is your value proposition to that agent? Are you really ready for it? And are you really ready to start splitting your commission before you've even maximized yourself? I just want you to talk about that a little bit more, because I think it's becoming more prevalent. And I love the message that you're sending, because I have to imagine your profit margins with fewer agents and a larger administrative staff are much larger than they would be if you had a whole bunch more agents.
And that's part of our value proposition. So when we just had all of our one-on-ones for the quarter, for quarter 1 ending. And so that was what I preached to everybody. I said, listen, my value to you is like, you're a great agent, you developed, and I'm glad we've been able to develop you. But the value I promise is I'm not going to dilute all of our leads to 30 agents, right? So part of my value proposition is, we're going to make sure there's enough leads for everybody to live big lives, right? It's including my listing. I mean, to hear some of my team members say they make a lot more money now just in their first, second, third years than they've ever made before is super gratifying. And so I would much rather that have a lot of good agents making a really good living than just a lot of agents and diluting. So big value proposition for me is we're not going to dilute the leads, right? And we're also going to offer leads. I mean, we're going to offer good leads, right? I don't touch. One of my second to last buyer's agent, her first sale was $2.6 million. That's our second highest sale on our whole team. I've sold one home higher than that amount, and that was her first deal. Because I'm like, I don't touch buyers. I don't care if it's a $10 million buyer. That's your guys' deals. And so, we kind of have a pretty black and white. And then for our listing agents, it's like, show me your skills, continue to get better. And I don't want to go on appointments, right? So if you can earn the right to take $1 million listing, then I can get out of the business or just oversee the business and not be in the business. That hasn't occurred yet, but we are working that. It's a goal. We're working that direction. Up until 2.5, 3 years ago, I was still going on every listing appointment. So it's been kind of tiers on the list side to earn. The buy side, a big value is like, no matter what buyer comes in, we're going to pre-qual them, do a really good job to pass you off some really good leads. And then we're going to give you the support behind that to ensure we can help you to do what you're good at. Get belly to belly with the clients, get out there, show them homes, and we'll do as much on the back end as we possibly can to ensure they can go out there and sell as many homes as possible and help as many people.
Well, I think like you sharing just that story and illustration really creates so much. It's got to create a lot of trust inside of your team. You're so committed to listings that even the second highest dollar value transaction that you guys will have ever done gets handed off to the buyer's agent because you're displaying, I am committed to listings. And it doesn't care. I don't care how high a dollar amount this transaction is. This is going to our buyer's agents because this is how we're structured. This is our value proposition. And I have to say, a lot of teams, they don't do that. They will cherry pick and, well, you know, this $1 million buyer, I'm going to take them because at the end of the day, maybe they don't trust the talent that's around them, or maybe they don't know what their value proposition is so well as you do, Jeff. And so I just encourage, if you're a rainmaker out there, hear what Jeff is saying and instill trust in your people. And if you say, well, David, I don't have that trust, and that's why I'm reserving all these high dollar quality transactions, you know, for myself, well, then it's a different conversation. Then it's a top grading of your talent conversation, right? But I just think that's really important. So you've dialed in the support system. You really have this commitment to listings, right? And I think it's kind of funny though. You said we have a pretty small team. If I add it up, I mean, you've got, with virtual assistants, you've got to be pushing around 20 people, right?
We're at about 25 with virtuals. Virtuals, there's about 12 or 13. Yes, it's about 25.
Okay. And the majority of them are on the support administrative side of things.
Yes, half.
Yeah, that's very cool. And let me ask you this. What led you down the path of like virtual assistant versus in-person assistant? How has that journey gone? Because I think that's also something a lot of agents are dabbling with, maybe for the first time. What have you found to be some best practices with virtual assistants?
Well, I mean, just with anything, it's just, you know, so for me, I'm constantly writing a list of things I don't want to or shouldn't do anymore. And depending what category they fall in, depends on where they go. And so to me, if anything can be task oriented, if I can literally, I mean, we have a great system for pretty much everything, and we have a lot of tasks for a lot of things. And so if I can create, because it's got to be really task oriented, and then so basically if I can have an action plan where everything's just task, that's going to go to a virtual assistant, right? So anything so I try to make everything to where if it's client facing, it's in-house. If it's not, how can we get a virtual assistant to do it, right? And I'll be honest, a big reason, one, originally it was to dabble. It was to find some support for my TC. When we first hired her, we were doing 220 deals, and she came to me and said, I'm moving back to Miami. And so she's going into teaching. So I was like, okay. Okay. So now that was our whole TC staff. One person did a lot. And so I just never wanted to put myself back into that position. I mean, I think she was making really good money, and cause she was doing a lot, and I appreciated it. But to me, I was like, well, I could we've already tested 2 part-time virtual assistants. I could hire 6 and just segment the tasks and have 2 people in transactions, 2 people in listing management, 2 people doing marketing and some other things. Why wouldn't I? You know, why wouldn't you do that? Now, if one leaves, you're not the one training. So we, you know, you constantly hear, you're always with one person in a position, you're one person away from that job, right? And so now I've made it a commitment to try to have 3 people, right? So have 3 transaction coordinators, 3 listing managers, 3 people that answer our MLS lines and deal with our realtors, 3 people that help our inside sales agents. So it's not me training them, and it's not our salespeople necessarily training them. It's now they training each other. And so if one person leaves, we have videos and we have somebody training and somebody to shadow, and I'm further away from that job, right? And so it was because one person that knew everything about our whole transactional world, you know, was moving. And at that time, we weren't prepared to go virtual with her. And so we made the decision to go virtual, and it makes it so much easier. So if one person leaves, it's very easy to fill that position. We have the tasks, we have the videos, we have the training to be able to, you know, pick up, where we left off and make it so much easier.
I'm really glad you expanded on that, because my very next question was about to be, talk to me about depth and not getting a rollback. And you just explained exactly how you do that by going 2 and 3 deep to ensure that you're not getting the job back. And in fact, now you have a person to train the next person. So you're not even doing that part of the job anymore. And you also, I really think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about you created a don't want to do list / shouldn't do list. And obviously this is something that has to be earned over time, but taking a look at the activities that you really don't enjoy and taking a look at the activities that are not creating the highest ROI for your time and hiring leverage on those things. Again, that has to be earned, right? You were doing 80, 85 units before you hired your first leverage. So if you're a listener right now and you're like, I'm at 6 units a year, it's time for leverage, maybe reconsider, right? That's something that has to be created over time. But if you're in Jeff's, sort of growth trajectory, then that can really help you break through that natural ceiling of achievement and double, triple, quadruple your business over time.
So exactly. So you made a great point too. And so one of the things I'm trying to do better as a leader is training how to use leverage. Cause I think that's one of the things you kind of underestimate. Right. And so for me, I was forced to have people learn and do under me, because I had to figure out the things that I just shouldn't be doing anymore, that weren't that dollar to dollar activity that I should be doing. And so now you kind of think, okay, you have all this leverage and you have salespeople. Well, why the heck aren't you using the leverage? Right. And so, but you come to learn, it's just, that's not everybody's natural ability, is all of a sudden understanding what leverage can do for you. So some of my conversations are, especially whenever anything's brought up about extra commission, extra pay, or extra, well, let's talk about your goals, right? What's your goal? Is it in numbers? Are you looking to make a certain amount? Because I guarantee we can probably do it through leverage, right? So let's right. The reason you're on the team wasn't because we don't talk about splits. We talk about how can we get you to your goal, right? And for me, it's usually built around leverage. And the discussions I say is, how can we use the leverage we already have, make it better? And then what leverage do you need to earn the right to have, right? So if it's a showing assistant, well, show me you can do 3 to 4 deals on your own per month, right? And then you're earning that. So for me, it's about like earning the right for more leverage, but then also, teaching how to utilize the leverage we already have so you can do more activities and make more money and be more productive and help more people, right?
Yeah. I think that's a really good summary. Jeff, when we were talking off air and you wrote something and said something, just before the show that really stuck with me. And it was basically this statement. You said some of the effect of, you want to or try and strive to be a leader who leads by influence and not necessarily always by example. And when I read that, it just it really struck me, and I was chewing on it in the car driving over to the studio today. And I'm just curious, like, what did you mean by that, and how does that show up in your business?
Well, so I think it takes you back to that 85 deals or 80 deals, right? Like, how stupid am I to be doing that much? Like, okay, I could do 85 deals and still be very productive with 3 other people helping me with that, right? So, so to me, and I've always thought, well, I'm going to do this harder and I'm going to do this better. And I still do. I mean, I still feel I outwork people, I outsmart people, and I have a plan. But and so when I interview people, I used to say, oh, wow, they would go and scrub the toilets, right? And that's amazing. That is awesome. But do you really should I be over there scrubbing the toilets right now? When I have a much bigger job to do. So I don't think it's necessarily, so now I look a lot like, I'm not looking for somebody to come in and necessarily be the hardest worker. And for me, I can't put everybody on my same level. Like, right, when you first start hiring, you expect everybody to be like you, right? You expect everybody to work as hard as you. You expect them to show up like you do. And life doesn't work that way, right? People aren't all like you, right? So it just kind of wake up one day, and the more people I surround myself with and seeing great agents, and what makes them powerful isn't because they work so hard, it's because they know how to work with people and they know how to get the most out of each individual person. And so for me, this journey I'm on, because I made a lot of mistakes, right? Quick to fire, sometimes too quick, right? What could we have done? What did we miss? What can we get out of their strengths and not worry about their weaknesses? So I've become better at trying to get more out of people's strengths and not worry so much about them being perfect in their weaknesses. And so for me, just looking at other people that have bigger teams and have great teams and doing a great job, they're very influential with their people. They know how to get the most out of their people without pushing them enough, but not too hard, and not pushing them off that cliff, right? Pushing them enough to get the most out of them, but then also reeling them back in and understanding, we're people. We need to be influential to each other. And so that's kind of what I meant by that statement, right? And so I made a lot of mistakes early on in leadership. And I think that's where my growth continues to need to be and continues to go, is to be more influential to my people, as opposed to just showing them that I'm such a great hard worker and not expecting everybody to be in that same box that I'm in.
We're talking about leadership right now and influence, and you've mentioned some of the lessons you've learned. I still want to ask you the question, Jeff, as you've been working and leading people all these years, what is maybe one or several of the greatest lessons you've learned in leadership of other people?
One of them is just not putting them in that same box, is leading to the individual. I'd probably say, really understanding what they want, what their goals are, and just leading to that, right? And trying to help guide them. Same when we're on a listing appointment, trying to help guide that seller to what they want and what we want, right? And so it's the same thing. We have our goals, and if we can lead them down a path to get their goals. So I guess one, understanding and being clear about what they want, and then just trying to navigate and fluidly get to that point with them, because if we can do that, then our goals is just a byproduct of that, right? So I think it's just the same thing, just kind of influencing them and leading down, understanding the individual and working with each one separately and through their strengths.
Yeah, well, that was I love that you connected it. Use the example of going on a listing appointment. You don't try to start servicing the client and offering solutions and guidance until you've thoroughly explored what it is that their outcome is in the first place, right? And I hear you saying that's exactly the same for an agent. You can't just lead them to some vision without having any clue as to what they want. Otherwise, you don't know if it's a good match for the team, and you don't know how to give them additional value. And that goes into the retention of your team and building that trust that we earlier talked about.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So you guys helped nearly 400 families last year, and you have had this, just awesome progression of growth. Jeff, where are you going and bringing the business next?
No, so it's a good question. So, they always say, if you're going to expand with the who and not the where, right? And so, my biggest vision is just kind of continue to expand from where we're at. And we get a lot more organic. I have an agent that's in our county north now. I have an agent that's kind of at the border of our South County, which is Broward and Palm Beach. So organically, we've just been going into other counties locally. And then one of my agents has mentioned several times, phenomenal salesperson moving back to Georgia. And so we've been exploring that, doing some research and taking, we have 40 lead pillars, right? How can we take the 5 to 8 best ones and apply it to that market, right? And so for me, Georgia's the next state over. He's already worked up there, so he already knows the area, and he's considering moving back. The first time around, I wasn't equipped. I didn't have the support for him to do that. So now we do. And I think for my growth is that would be our first step. And then also we're just doing internal. I would like to be on the West Coast of Florida, but we do it organically because we do so much marketing digitally and in people's mailboxes that organically our name keeps getting bigger and bigger. So lately it's been organic. Now we're starting to explore with the right person going outside of the area. It's going to strengthen, I think, our team all around if we can successfully do that.
Very cool. Well, Jeff, you've built something phenomenal. You've dropped some great information and nuggets for our audience. I really appreciate it. I want to transition us to the last segment of our show, which is 3, 2, 1 action. It's the same 3 questions we ask every guest. We're putting you on the hot seat, even though I think you're at a standing desk. So
yeah.
Let's go with question number 1.
All right, Jeff, who is the one most influential person on your business and why?
So on my team?
The person that's influenced you most in your business development.
Oh, okay. Well, I would just say, probably Gary Keller. I mean, that's the book I read. That's the company I chose to be a part of. A goal of mine was become their top 100, which I did just to kind of rub elbows with like-minded people.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, you referenced a book. I don't know if it's going to be the one you choose, but what is the most influential book on your business and why?
I'd probably say Rocket Fuel, just to get a clear understanding the difference of and how key it is not to be. You need more leaders, you need more people in your business, right? To have that visionary and the integrator and understanding there's a difference between the person that has the vision and where it can go and shoot for the moon, and then the person that can make it reality and kind of bring it back to earth and have a game plan around that.
Awesome.
Yeah, great book. Third and final question, Jeff. As you know, this is the All In podcast where we encourage our listeners to take what they've heard here today and go put it into action. So what's the one thing you recommend that our listeners go do today to continue building business momentum in their favor?
So for me, I always, even when, I look at, anybody I'm looking to hire, I just looked at four qualities. 1, be driven, be hungry and driven. 2, be passionate about what you do. If you're passionate, it doesn't feel like work. Provide amazing service to the clients and now my clients are my employees. And then 4th is just be super focused. I mean, be focused on what you want, have a game plan around it, and just go get it.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for investing some time with our audience. I know that they're going to want to connect with you. What's the best place for them to either connect directly or find more of your content, find more about your team? Where can they go?
Yeah. So Tricoli is my last name, Tricoli. So just TricoliTeam.com. And that's where, all our information is and that sort of thing.
Love it. Well, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. I know you're a busy man, and we definitely have learned some things here, and we're excited to get it out to our audience. So have an awesome day.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, this has been another episode of the All In Podcast. As always, go play.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to
All In.
this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play all in.